recording this to the cloud. This is part 2 of week 4. And while I'm doing this, I'm going to make Bo a co-host so that he can help me out here a little bit as my TA in this, in case I get disconnected. Well, we won't lose anything. So Bo, you are now a co-host. So this is a course in learning environments design, R622, which I was jealous of the people teaching this course the past 25 years. I finally got my chance last semester. It was a little dry run. A month ago, I had no clue who was going to be my guest in this class. And in fact, the guest we had last week, Thursday, from Hong Kong/Australia, she's living temporarily in Australia, Susan Bridges, and today's at noon guest from Egypt, Gian Osman, were added to. So this is evolving. The course is evolving. All the speakers, Paul Kim from Stanford last week showing a SMILE program, was fascinating. And tonight is going to be definitely more of the same fascinating information, because our guest tonight has a background that I envy. She's a fellow of every organization I think that she's part of. I'm trying to get there. APS, AERA, ST&D, and founding director of the APA Technology Mind and Behavior. And so she's in cognitive science, learning sciences, learning engineering. Danielle McNamara is the executive director of the newly formed Arizona State Learning and Engineering Institute. Now, I did go online to try and find out a little more, and there's a lot of engineering going on at ASU. They want to get me to enroll, I think. She's the director of the Science of Learning and Educational Technology, SoLET Lab. Now, that sounds really interesting and fascinating. We want to hear more about that. And professor in the Department of Psychology. Her interests include comprehension and writing and learning and cognition and natural language processing, NLP, AI, intelligent tutoring. And she's created some systems for intelligent tutoring, one called iStart, which I didn't get a chance to ask her about previously, and we'll talk about that, and the Writing Pale, which I did ask her about because she was on my podcast show a few weeks ago. But we'll want to talk more about that because it's near and dear to my heart. And apparently she is interested in essay writing as well, along with second language learning and creativity, two others of my interests. So that's kind of a little bit about our guest. I'm sure she's going to fill you in with a whole lot more. And given the breadth and the depth of her knowledge in psychology and areas of learning, she can have a huge impact on each of your projects this midterm, because you're all working on them and you're creating templates for learning environments, right? And so maybe she can give you a little guidance in what you might want to include in its criteria in your learning environments design projects, as well as your critique that you have to do this coming Monday or Tuesday, I think they're due. So Danielle, let's just start off with an easy little side question, and that is, I introduced you, but really bios don't represent truly who a person is until you really hear about what they're passionate about. These are just numbers and statistics on pieces of paper, right? So could you give us a little bit more, flesh out a little bit more your background and what led you on the path to where you are today?
Sure, I'm happy to be here. So my path is long, and lots of diversions and changes in careers along the way. I started out in psychology and then switched to linguistics as an undergraduate, and then I went and taught English as a second language for about 5 to 6 years. And then decided I didn't really see a future for linguistics as an upper degree, and went back to this original plan of being a clinical psychologist. So I got a clinical psych degree. And then discovered that really wasn't my gig, and I really loved running experiments. So then I got into a program at the University of Colorado for an experimental psychology. And in that mix, discovered really going back to when I had been teaching English as a second language, passion for a couple of things. One, when I was teaching English as a second language, I was dismayed by how bad books were. And a second one was just really a focus on applied learning. So how do people learn information? I was in a cognitive program, so it was more like, how do you remember a word? And I didn't really care if people could remember a word. I was more interested in how they were learning information and skills. So from there, I started mixing my linguistics and experimental background and got interested in building natural language processing tools. So while I was interested in understanding the text difficulty, I started building tools so that we could do that more easily, and started building natural language processing tools for researchers. So we built Cometrics, and I also started building the complement tool, what I viewed as a complement to Cometrics, which was iStart. And iStart, so the idea behind Cometrics was publishers need to write better text. So we're going to give them the indices they need to do that, and we're going to better understand text difficulty so we can improve text. But then there was also just this reality that publishers were not going to improve their text, and we needed to help learners know how to navigate really challenging text. So we built iStart so that learners could learn strategies combining self-explanation and reading strategies, and undergirding that were the computational linguistic algorithms to drive feedback. So I started getting into the whole gamut of learning environments, of building the underlying algorithms that drive active learning and can interact with the learner, the user interfaces that are conducive to good learning. So tutoring environments, feedback systems, systems for instructors, and then also continued on this path of building things for researchers like analytic tools. Then I started getting into writing, and thought about how writing strategies can help students. And really, what I was focusing on those kind of high school students who were being left behind because they didn't have knowledge, they didn't have not sufficient knowledge, they didn't have that background with the reading and writing strategies. And so working toward helping those kinds of students get into a place where they could navigate college. And from there, after building Writing Pal and iStart, now I'm turning my attention toward helping others build these kinds of environments using learning engineering principles. So focusing on higher ed, and it's in essence treating ASU like a very, 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 very large tutoring system, and bringing people together across the university to think about how we can use learning engineering principles to build multidisciplinary teams and focus on how to improve learning experiences and learning outcomes, first and foremost at ASU, but then of course to build generalizable principles that can be used by researchers across the world. So that's it in a nutshell, and a very short nutshell for a very long career.
Very fascinating, all these things. I just had Colorado pop in my head here as you talked about being there. Would you happen to have been there in 1998?
I might have visited in 1998, but I had already left. I left in 95.
Okay, because there's a guy named Larry Green. I visited him. He was building a writing tool himself there, and I was building writing tools. And so we did a little show and tell, collaborative writing stuff and whatnot. and I think he was in the linguistics department. It's been 25 years, so I don't
Yeah.
know exactly, but yeah, that's a fascinating place. It's just how could you leave? I mean, it's just like
A lot of people didn't.
a lot of people drive taxis in Madison, Wisconsin too, because they don't want to leave
Yeah.
there either, and Bloomington as well. These college towns are attractive, and that's why partly what happens. So you've done a lot, and really the kernel of everything sounds like it's tutoring and feedback systems, or personalizing the learning environments in some ways to help and assist in the learning process, which leads you today into this gigantic AI learning world. And I don't want to get into the AI part just yet. I want to pick around the edges a little bit before we do that, because there's a lot of other things to discuss. And the students will be asking questions along the way. And if there is anything you would like to show us, any of these tools, by all means, you can jump in and share us one, and we'd be fascinated to see anything that, like the writing pail or iStart or something like that. Can you explain for us, and you did this in my podcast show, explaining what this new center, this Learning Engineering Institute, I guess, is about, and why it was formed, and what the goal and mission of it is, and your role within that?
Happy to. So who in here knows what learning engineering is?
I should know, since you're on my podcast show. You should probably define it for them.
You know what? Maybe I will turn to slides. How about that?
Okay, sure.
That might help y'all, because I just happen to have slides up, so I might as well share them. Oh,
there we go.
How's that?
Yep, we got it.
Okay. All right. So our overall objective is advancing learning success at scale, and we focus on inclusive innovation. So inclusion is a big part of inclusive excellence, is a very important part of ASU. Put my cursor on the right one. So what is learning engineering? So one definition, or part of the definition, is the use of large-scale data technology and design to improve learning and outcomes for all students. That's pretty generic, but one key component is interdisciplinary, collaborative, action-based research. So learning engineering involves bringing people to the table from multiple disciplines. And like you just heard, I'm from multiple disciplines, but that's not enough. Bringing people who from transdisciplinary teams that are not only from different domains, but cross sectors. So bringing instructional designers to the table, instructors, students, people from different domains who are concerned with at the center some opportunity or learning issue that they might be a focus for that particular group of people, or for whatever problem that they're facing. And so the second aspect of learning engineering is something that you're well familiar with, kind of the cyclical iterative design cycle. There are a couple of components that are critical to this. One is that it's very challenge focused. So you can think of learning sciences as more focused on building theories and understanding, and comparing theories, building our knowledge, whereas learning engineering is more about solving problems, meeting challenges, thinking about opportunities that have arisen, or things that you want to really tackle with multidisciplinary teams. And so, and then it involves this iterative ideation, design, experiment that's very user-centered, human-centered. So always thinking about the user and the stakeholders, I should say. And there are always multiple stakeholders. So thinking about it from multiple perspectives and multiple theoretical perspectives is something that's very, very germane to learning engineering, and being open-minded to this perspective and that perspective and this approach and that approach, and putting things together in a very collaborative way. And so at ASU, what we're doing, our threads of our work and our key ingredients, so to speak, are very aligned with the key ingredients of learning engineering. There's three key ingredients of learning engineering. One is data. So if you're tackling the one of these challenges or problems, what you want to first think about is your data infrastructure. So how are you going to collect data? How are you going to collect data flexibly and nimbly? And so for the last few years, I've been working on a project at ASU called Learning at Scale. So that is a website we have up. The Learning Engineering Institute website will come up in the next few weeks. We've been working on that. But
that explains why I couldn't.
There is no website. Coming soon to a site near you will be the lei.asu.edu website. But for now, we do have the Learning at Scale website up. And if you go there, what you'll see is that for the last few years, what we've been working on is taking the what we have at ASU is a lot of students. We have upwards to 150,000 students who are, it's a diverse population, a lot of first-gen students.
Wait. Everybody here, unmute your mics and just go wow on the count of three. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Wow.
So yeah, we've been working on making those data available to researchers. So creating a platform that puts together the ability for researchers to be able to, and not only analyze data from ASU students and courses to better understand learning, but also eventually to be able to conduct experiments like rapid A/B studies or A/B comparisons, or even qualitative studies, by linking those data to Canvas and being able to have a deeper understanding of when you're running these studies. So we're building this infrastructure by first tackling the need for the data infrastructure. And so that's called Learning at Scale. Then the second key ingredient is assessment and evaluation. So using and thinking about your evidence-based measurement and analytics, both in terms of thinking about how to assess your outcomes and processes iteratively as you go along, but then also how to build these predictive analytics using AI and machine learning so that you can move forward in building systems that scale. And then, and scale is important to learning engineering. And then the third is technology, and building these scalable learning technologies that are human-centered. So sometimes when I say technologies, I don't mean like just building these tutoring systems that we implant into a classroom, which doesn't work at all, but thinking about what does each of the users need, what each of the stakeholders need, and how do you scaffold toward having this human-centered, collaborative learning experiences that are scalable. And then underlying all of this is this thread of inclusive excellence and inclusion. So constantly reminding ourselves and thinking about how do we make sure that we are thinking about inclusion of diverse students and students of all backgrounds, and how are we thinking about what they need and what our instructors need, and thinking about those broad implications. So our mission, just in a nutshell, is to convene and facilitate transdisciplinary teams to advance and apply best-in-class technologies and innovations. that will empower inclusion and then improve student experiences and enhance student outcomes. And then I just really want to point out the ASU charter, which is very unique. This is what drives ASU. It's what brings everybody to the table. Yesterday, I gave a talk at ASU is divided up into enterprises. So we have the academic enterprise, which is the typical, like the departments and the deans and the academic side. We also have the enterprise technologies. So that is the technology piece. So I went and gave a talk to their conference yesterday, and it's like 600 people. So 600 staff, data analysts, designers are devoted at ASU to improving student outcomes. And what ties everyone together is this charter.
Wait a minute. On the count of three, 600 instructional design and data analysts and computer scientists all working on this mission. Everyone unmute your mics as we say wow on the count of three. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Wow. And there's some of our students have been hired. At least one is working there. Peter Van Loosen has been hired. There are a lot of instructional designers, let's say, at ASU because of all the things with Starbucks and other ventures that they have going on, because of Mr. Crow, the president, and so forth, pushing ASU in new directions.
Well, in terms of instructional designers, I mean, I would say maybe a portion of instructional designers are part of educational technology, because we have instructional designers at Ed Plus, and we have instructional designers in AE, and embedded in all of the departments. And so there's just a really strong commitment to improving the technological experience of students at ASU, and just really great people. And I think that really what ties people together and lets egos not be so strongly driving what our interactions is this mission. I mean, who could not sign on to this mission, right? Who could say no to this? This is perfect, right? So the Learning Engineering Institute is intricately designed, intricately interwoven to help ASU meet this mission. So just in a nutshell, serving as a collaborative space, that's very important. We're trying to tie together and serve as a forum for people from different parts of the university to meet together. It's kind of like ASU is kind of like this big city. It's in 4 different parts of our metropolis. It takes an hour to get from one campus to another, sometimes from one of the far campuses. And it's just a lot of people, and it's complex. But the Learning Engineering Institute is being designed and launched so that we can serve as this collaborative space, so that we can address challenges in learning and teaching. So going back to that iterative process, the concept that we are using to tie together this iterative process with the collaborative space is called Learning Engineering Action Pods. And so Learning Engineering Action Pods, which is short for LEAPs, which I thought of, and I'll take full credit for the genius of that. Thank you. LEAPs are come together to tackle these very burning questions and to promote student success. And so each LEAP will be, focused on different things. Our first LEAP is on, and you can't avoid the topic now, generative AI. So everyone is, as you know, that's the hot topic of the day. And it's a real challenge for higher education in how are we going to move forward to both recognize the potential, how generative AI might compromise our teaching methods and our instructional assessments and assignments, but moreover, how we might embrace it so that we can leverage generative AI technologies and help instructors to better meet students' needs and to work toward helping them actually achieve their pedagogical goals using these tools that can help to foster creative thinking and collaboration and processes that they need to be prepared for when they exit college. Now the world's changing and we need to help instructors to help students to meet their needs. So we did do a survey at ASU, and the national norms are that faculty are a little bit behind students in terms of using generative AI, but we are starting to catch up. And so about 1 in 4 faculty at ASU are using generative AI, and they are mostly using ChatGPT, but I think we're going to see trends in wider use of other technologies, and really probably I would predict that most faculty are going to be aware of it. We're of course always going to have those people who won't adopt or use it. So there's my call for action, but our plan is to build a model for this kind of approach and then help other institutions and researchers to work toward this approach, assuming it works. And that's what we're going to be exploring and building this core at ASU to advanced learning engineering, but the ultimate goal is to help to enhance learning outcomes.
So now I can make a couple of comments on the side. A month after, or the month before, maybe, I saw Larry Green in Colorado in Boulder. I was on the ASU campus interviewing for a job there to run their teaching and learning center. The state was going to give him $30 million to build a new teaching and learning center, and I was going to be the director.
Yeah. When was that?
I ended up saying no, and then they didn't get the money. The state decided they weren't going to fund that, so it was a wise decision. But now, seeing all that's going on there, maybe I should have gone there and done met cool people like you and Punya and others. My friend Jim Middleton is in the math ed or engineering. I don't know if you know Jim, but you should meet him. He's a very talented, creative guy. He helped me do my dissertation a long time ago. So yeah, we have some overlaps. Last night, I spoke to Japanese English teachers about pedagogical uses of ChatGPT late last night as my first dry run through. And I should have maybe had some of your examples in that in my slide set, but next time. But I'm interested in leading us to generative AI and ChatGPT in the writing pale. And I'm wondering if you could talk a bit about developing. When you said build, I built the writing pale, and I've built software too. Did you have a team building and doing the software development and a huge grant a series of grants that enabled you to build that along the way? And the tool set, I'm assuming, was kind of to scaffold students' writing and support their writing with different prompts and aids and other features that maybe today can be realized a little more expediently with tools like ChatGPT and others that have evolved. So when did you build that? And did it lead to insights into what we have today, or how we can use these tools that exist today? And where are we going next?
Okay, so the writing pal, this was a project the writing pal was an exemplar of persistence in grant writing. I think I wrote 5 versions of this grant proposal. And maybe I wrote 6, and the 5th out of the 6 was the lucky winner. And so the reason why we designed Writing Pal or proposed Writing Pal was because there was a relative dearth of experimental research on writing strategies in like around that era. 2008 is when it was funded. And there were 2 aspects to it. One was there were algorithms being propagated by companies for automated essay evaluation. But what we did not have was this recognition of the need for instruction combined with this feedback. So I come from a background where I focus on teaching learners strategies. And so the Writing Pal is focused on providing instruction on strategies for less skilled learners to catch up. So we all know that if you read more and more and more and more, you're going to be a better reader. And you all know that if you write more and more and more with very good feedback, you will be better writers. But what does a student do? How can they catch up if they don't have that? You have to give them strategies. You can't say, okay, well, if you write 100 essays, in a couple of years, you'll be fine. And so the idea behind it was to help students to learn strategies in a game-based system. So the Writing Pal has modules that provide writing instruction provide instruction on the strategy. So really brief modules, just the information delivery. This is a strategy. Here's a mnemonic. Here's a thing that you can use when you're writing to help you to structure or to think about while you're writing. And then games. So games to help them practice those. And then the third part was the actual implementation in the whole task. So you can think about this in the skill acquisition literature as information delivery, brief, modeling of the strategies, and then part task, and then whole task practice with feedback. And the feedback for the games and then the essays was part of this automated essay evaluation, but each game was kind of different. Part of our goal was to investigate the effects of games on learning. So do students enjoy games? Can we contrast games and non-games? What kinds of games help learners? And then the other part of it was to build these automated essay evaluation algorithms that provide feedback linked to the strategies. So not just it's a 6, yay, or it's a 3, yay, but more along the lines of investigating how to provide feedback. Like one study was, do you provide a lot of feedback? Like ETSs gives all the feedback, or do you provide nuggets of feedback for what they should focus on next and iteratively? And so and how do you word the feedback, etc. So this is a system that has about 9 modules. It has games, and then after each module, you can practice writing these essays. Teachers can insert their own prompts because it's an any prompt, anytime algorithm for this genre of writing. And so really, it's more focused on the teaching of the strategies. Where we went from there has also been to build a writing analytics tool. So we've been working on a tool for researchers and teachers and students that provides not the feedback really, but the analytics, more like the text-based analytics that we provide on reading, on scaffolding or helping teachers to extract features of writing that will help them to understand the quality of students' writing, and then also those feedback mechanisms. And then, of course, as we enter this new world, if I enter one of my prompts into ChatGPT, it does a pretty good job of doing that. And so one of the big questions of writing that essay, but so one of the questions now that we're facing is how do you scaffold these assignments in writing so that, and how do you build a tool that will work in this generative AI environment, but also scaffold students to learn these writing strategies and learn to be critical thinkers while they're writing. But obviously they're going to be leveraging these kinds of tools to make writing faster.
So this is excellent. I mean, this is what I'm into myself, as I was building writing tools in WordPerfect back in the day, and the keystroke mapping and creativity and critical thinking prompting systems on a budget, you know, held together by band-aids and paper clips. Basically, the tool was, you know, that's the way Gabriel Solomon would state it in the old days. I don't know if you've heard the name Gabriel Solomon, but he was a pretty well-known person in the field of ed psych and social cultural theory. But we have lots of questions in the Jamboard. I didn't realize, and I apologize to everyone, I didn't realize how many questions have been popping up. And I know that something Ed wanted to make a comment at least. He wanted to ask you a question. Ed?
Hi, Dr. McNamara. I was just wondering if you obviously work with Dr. Van Loozen.
Peter Van Loozen, who's an alum of our program. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, I don't know if he's still there because I had a course with him, I think, last year, and he was part of the Fulton School's engineering.
I don't think so.
And Ed Plus too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
miss him. He's really
need
tall.
a minute.
Yeah, he's what I think I had him in the Learning Institute, but he was under engineering. Yeah, digital learning initiatives.
Oh, okay.
Engineering school.
I'm sorry, I'm blanking, but
600 people he has to meet.
yeah, I'll look at him up.
Next, Rachel has a couple of questions. Rachel, you want to jump in since you didn't get a chance this morning or at noontime?
Sure. Thank you so much for being here and talking with us. I was just thinking about the A/B testing, and it makes a lot of sense to me in engineering context and things like that when you're looking at specific problems and you might give different things. But what about the humanities or some other fields? Is A/B testing something that you would recommend? And if so, can you talk about any examples of A/B testing in the humanities?
Well, I mean, A/B testing is really just a comparison testing. So it really depends on what your question is. But in any domain of question, like if you're teaching humanities, there are different ways of approaching it. So the question is, you know, how might you design a learning activity in any domain, collaborative learning activity? How might you want to change up your assessment? And the idea, for example, in using generative AI, does it work one way or another? If I'm teaching a humanities topic, if I have students collaborate in one way with ChatGPT or individually, or one big part of it is prompt engineering. So getting students to think critically about questions in the social sciences by having them criticize something that a generative AI might say, or improve it, or work together to think about different ways of writing questions. So one of the things to think about is we have become more of a, we have focused on, been enveloped in the misconception of information consumption in education. The notion that if I if I consume information, if I give you information, if I talk a lot today, you're going to learn a lot. And then I'm going to walk away and I can give you a multiple choice questionnaire. And then I will know that you learned it. And I'm drop the mic, I'm done. So end of semester, you get your grade, you've learned this much. And so, and this is obviously a fallacy. And so thinking about what do we really want out of education? We want critical thinkers, we want problem solvers, we want collaborators. We want people to have the underlying skills, like you got to know math. And so how do you, and I will hold that you do actually need to know math. And you do need to actually be able to judge and write things and read. And so how do you work to help students acquire those skills across multiple domains? And humanities is very important, just as a sideline in terms of if you look at economics and the importance of humanities and those skills, those critical thinking skills, collaboration, problem solving, communication that come from humanities and understanding historical events and how we got here and where we might be going. All of those issues are what are very predictive of success later in careers, because really what you need are those people who can put these teams together and understand how understand the humanities. So, and have read a few books.
Can I jump in with a second question?
Sure.
So kind of changing gears, and I have so many questions, but I think the one I want to ask.
Tell her who you work for, by the way.
Oh, okay. So I work for the Commission on English Language Program Accreditation, which is a specialized accreditor of post-secondary English language programs that mostly cater to F1 international students. But it is worldwide, although the majority of the sites that we accredit are inside the United States. And one of the projects that we're working on is building a more like a corporate training environment for volunteer peer site reviewers to be able to analyze and then respond to self-study reports and many other things. But we keep bumping into people want to suggest, people who don't know anything about ChatGPT want to suggest that someone is going to write their report about their school using ChatGPT, and we need to, as the accreditor, do something about that, which I understand where the kernel of the concern is. It's that it's not real self-study, it's generative by something, and people are concerned, just like with students though. I mean, to me, there's a real connection there. But the other concern is the terms of service of ChatGPT. Because it has the biggest name, people think it's a benevolent tool, and they aren't, of course, reading the terms of service. And we have a huge responsibility for confidentiality. And so we keep telling all our folks, do not pour the documents that you're receiving that are confidential into this engine. You don't own them, and neither do we, and don't violate confidentiality. But given all of that, AI seems like a great way for us to, especially large language models that would produce narrative text related to a prompt, seems like a great way for us to generate models of responses that are not real, so they are not owned by a school, that then we could talk about analysis and understanding and application to a specific educational standard. So I don't know, that really wasn't a question. I kind of, but that's been on my mind. Can we use, and this isn't a question to ask you for permission, but how can we effectively think about using AI or talking to our folks about whether or not to use AI? That's kind of
This is one of our subgroups in the generative AI leap is the guidelines and ethics subgroup. And they think deeply about this, and we all think deeply about it. I think the most important thing to make sure that people understand is the students actually have at ASU anyway, they own own their work. And so it is an incredible violation if a faculty or instructor puts the student's essay into ChatGPT. Now the student can do it and then give the faculty what they've done, but not vice versa. I have also heard of people, researchers, putting data into ChatGPT or other tools, and so understanding that is a violation of IRBs, and because you're really just posting this stuff on a public website, and also understanding that you do not have ownership of this. So what we've been doing at ASU is working toward creating these secure environments. In the meantime, where it would be within a secure environment that uses the algorithms but is not released to public domain. That's very important to moving forward with like bots that take in and ingest university information in order to give to work with students. It's also very important to convey to faculty, no, you can't have ChatGPT grade your stuff. That's not a thing. And I'm afraid that message will continually be lost on instructors who are going in blind. But it's very important, and communicating those boundaries is very important to moving forward. To one of our foci is on AI literacy. So a part of our work this summer has been building instructional modules for both the faculty and students to cover, what is AI? What is generative AI? How do you use it? Prompt engineering. So there have been faculty members creating instructional courses and materials. We've been developing instructional modules for faculty, and then we'll be iteratively improving those and using them, and hopefully someday distributing them more broadly.
Yeah, here in Indiana, they're building K6 kinds of stuff, training of early elementary teachers about AI.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, they have huge grants with North Carolina State, or UNC. Big monies are out now, as you know. Alicia has a question, but I'm not sure it's an AI related, so I might hold off for a second. Does anyone have a follow-up or a question related to AI, since we're on the topic of generative AI? Did anyone post to the Jamboard an AI question?
I have the
Go ahead,
one.
Lena. Yeah.
That's my question in Jamboard. What aspects are generative AI used in classroom in your research? So just now in your slide, you mentioned about that. You have done a research about how the generative AI being used. And you mentioned that about, I remember it's about more than 40%, right, to use AI in classroom. So I wonder in what aspects is AI being used in classroom? Thank you.
Yeah, I wish I could answer that question, but we are that's like hot off the press, and we haven't really analyzed the answers. And moving forward, we're simply identifying who's doing what. But some examples are that we have an instructor in English who has been using the system Muse, and to help students to in their writing process. We have another faculty member who's been using a system called, no, the writing one is WordTune. And then the Muse is a system that is being used by a writer in teaching, writing genres, but mainly, so Muse helps to write screenplays. So it's kind of a prompt that helps to understand the structure of screenplays. We've had, I mean, there's just people across the university who kind of dove in and have been playing with it out. What our objective is to gather these together and figure out what works and help other instructors to be creatively creating these kinds of different kinds of assignments. But we're just at the beginning stage of this. Part of your question was, how have you used ChatGPT or generative AI? I'm also from a completely different role as a researcher, been building tools my entire career, and we've been working on combining generative AI with our more traditional machine learning AI algorithms in helping to build things like the systems that can ask questions about text, or improving algorithms for writing, or what's another one? Just various kinds of ways of combining generative AI. And in a sense, we've been doing that for a long time, because generative AI has moved from like Word to Vec to BERT to then these large language models, which is really more of a technology hardware advance than the advance in math, but that's a different topic.
Okay, thank you.
So Amelia has a quick question for you. Oh, Ty's got an AI one. Go ahead, Amelia. Had hers first. Go ahead, Amelia. She's in
I think
Japan.
we answered that. You went into it a little bit after I put that in chat, but first you're talking about, the security issues of uploading student essays and that who owns the work, ownership, and then what? And then you could kind of talked about maybe it could help students co-author a play. Rachel went into ChatGPT helping write personal, what do you say, accreditation essays. And I think, so I was just wondering if it's going to be academic integrity, or is you're going to build your own ecosystem where it's going to take and analyze how, I don't know how it's going to work. And I was just wondering if you have any more thoughts on that.
Well, I guess I'd point out that what the work that's being done at ASU goes far beyond what I've described in the LEAP. So there's an initiative to build out these kinds of tools and to build out larger foci on the ethics. And our main focus is on building out these instructional resources and then investigating their impact, because our main objective is to connect these activities that people are engaging in with that learning at scale platform that I talked about earlier, in helping us to understand the impact both immediately but also longitudinally. So and connecting these kinds of informal and formal studies that are being done with the data infrastructure. But just to say, I'm not, and the LEAP is not the only party at ASU. It's really just a very dispersed and huge efforts at ASU to think about these issues. But we're just starting.
So Ty wants to jump in here with a couple of different things. Ty, you want to give her your background, tell Danielle where you are and what you're doing there, and ask your question.
Yeah, hello. I'm along with Matt. I'm also a IU baseball player, but I've never really understood the whole ChatGPT thing or any of the AI. But like from what I understand, like I don't know, I can see it being a very, very positive thing and also be a negative thing. So I guess like for my question, I just said I was asking, with many students utilizing AI to complete their work, is there any way for instructors to identify the difference between students utilizing AI to complete their work without them actually doing it? And I don't know, like what I'm trying to get at there is if there's any way to detect the AI that cancel out those that are like overusing it just to finish their work, instead of, or since they're probably not going to grasp the assignment and what the lesson for the work would be, since they're not really completing it themselves.
Right. So that's a big issue. One of the things that has transpired over the past 6 months or so are various detector algorithms that say whether or not it is generated by an AI versus an actual human. The problem is that AI grows faster than those algorithms, and they're generally wrong. You kind of have a je ne sais quoi feeling about the feel of the text that is generated by generative AI, but at the same time, it's also getting better and better at being more and more human, like as the models become bigger and better. So the assumption we make is that for traditional assignments, there's really not going to be a way of detecting it without asking. So what the move more is toward is having people disclose, did you use generative AI? How did you use it? And designing assignments that leverage it or give the option of leveraging it. So one faculty member today was talking about how he has two types of assignments, one where they don't want to use it, so they don't have to. And then the other is they do use it, they acknowledge how they used it, and they're actually told how to use it. So I think the future is more not in taking our traditional assignments and assessments and saying, don't you dare use it. It's not going to work. And moving more toward, well, if you use it, say where you used it and how it's been modified, how you have worked with it, and working with students to use it and to then improve it, because the outcome is often mistake ridden. It often has errors. It's not a search tool. This is one common misconception. It is not a search tool. It is what it does is it predicts the most likely words as a function of the context. And what ChatGPT has done is that it's advanced the amount of corpora that it's relying on, and also enlarge the context window. When that's what makes it so powerful, is this context window. So it can very, very easily just say the next word. And think about how we talk. And when you're talking, do you know you're going to say the next word, the very next word? No, you've already, it's like already designed in this huge brain that can navigate all of our knowledge and produce speech. Well, I don't want to say that ChatGPT works the same way as a human, because it's not. It's a technology. It's an AI. It's not an I. And but it's not. It doesn't always combine with an accuracy model. It's not saying whether it's a true reference. It's not saying whether something is true. It's relying on this large corpora of information. And so working toward helping instructors and students to think about being critical of that and improving on whatever is produced. and using it within, there's all sorts of apps being created that leverage the generative AI within the app, but then also provide the structure and the instruction that helps them to learn the skills and knowledge that they need to move forward.
Does that help, Ty?
Yeah, absolutely. And I have another question that I put on there too, just real quick. I was also going to ask if the introduction to AI had, or like from your own standpoint, do you think that it could or has, you know, led to an increase in student pass rates due to like a lot of people maybe utilizing that work? You know, if they're like, I could see if they're not like able to do the work on their own, and then or just having trouble passing that, like a lot of those weed out classes that are out there, if they're utilizing that to get into like certain departments and stuff, like do you think that it may be increasing the pass rates from people using this too much?
Well, I mean, there are two aspects to that question. One, it's a good question, and I think that there will be more research on that. The other answer to that question is pass rates are complex. Why a student doesn't pass a class often is linked to simple things like the syllabus. The syllabus says if you don't show up 3 times, you flunk. So if you don't show up 3 times, ChatGPT is not going to help you there.
Right.
And another is things like finances. Students run out of money. And can't pay their bills, or things happen, or they get ill, or you know, various things happen that it contribute to the variance of pass rates, that this would be a small thing. But I will give you an example of where this did happen, but not with ChatGPT, because this is all new, and so like we don't know. I think it will happen for instructors who are not aware of how their assignments are compromised. And this is kind of anecdotal, but an instructor, a faculty member who was talking to me about their class. It's a really great class. It's got this really interesting topic. And he had these great ratings, and the ratings and the grades kept going up and up and up. So he thought he was doing a great job, when in fact, what was really happening is that all of his multiple choice items were published on Course Hero. And so everybody loved the class because all of the questions were already on Course Hero, and it's fun class. But in fact, nobody was learning any of the material because it was all the multiple choice questions. And he had no idea that Course Hero existed. No one had told him. And so, yes, pass rates will go up for certain classes that aren't aware that you give a writing assignment with a prompt, and you might be cued into students who all have the same response because they all went to ChatGPT. But prompt engineering is important. So one question would be, if you're able to get a different response from everyone else, isn't that kind of the goal? So so it's a complicated question, but I think we'll be looking at the historical data, and people will, I think you're going to see publications on this coming in the next few years from various people.
One thing, Ty, I've seen is that the people creating plagiarism detecting systems are about your age. They're graduate students at Princeton and whatnot, and one person can develop this fascinating tool. I mean, it's really amazing, you know. So we don't know what's going to be happening in this space, because more young people will be going to college and deciding they want to get at this and take a stab at solving this huge issue. There'll be an army of people trying to attack this, and the funding is out there. The first time I've been in higher education, I've been a long time. There's more pots of money than I've ever seen before for this and that. And so anyways, we do need to almost end here tonight. Not yet, but I want to be cognizant of time, everyone's time here. including yours. But I promised Alicia I would let her ask a question. It might be the last one unless someone else definitely has to ask a question. I'll let if someone wants to jump in after Alicia. But Alicia, go ahead.
Thank you, Banks. Thank you, Daniel. I'm quite interested and I'm really impressed by your academic achievement. So especially cognitive science assessment. This is amazing. And that's why I asked the question about students' cognitive development, especially according to Bloom's theory that taxonomy, the higher order thinking should be cultivated, except basic knowledge. So no matter you use the very traditional teaching instruction or AI or ChatGPT, we need to cultivate students a higher order learning ability. So, but I'm a teacher. I'm an English teacher from Shanghai Institute of Technology. And I also teach undergraduate students and postgraduate students. So I have the problem that is, I want to improve my students' critical thinking, innovation ability, but we have limited or constrained teaching time for English learning. So this is a dilemma. What's your suggestion? How can we balance or effectively design our class? Thank you.
You're being asked to solve all of education's problems tonight, but that's okay. That's the way the session should work. It's a great question.
I think, part of what you're going at is the tension between these kinds of activities that are one-on-one, collaborative, and large-scale learning and large classes is part of what you're kind of getting at. But another part of it that what you're getting at is how can I leverage these tools in the classroom, particularly for language learning. And then the third part I see is the Bloom's taxonomy, I think, is good for some things, but it can be it can help to confuse the learning process. So we do need to know, we do need to have these skills and knowledge as we move along. I've been largely focused on that mid-level kind of acquiring strategies and knowledge, and it's very hard to get to that critical thinking and problem solving if you don't have those base skills. One of the things that generative AI offers is the ability to work students toward the critical thinking and problem solving without having perfect English, without having all of the other knowledge. But the critical question is, how are we going to balance both? So I don't have an answer. I think that is the question.
Thank you, Danielle, for tonight, for joining us this afternoon in Tempe. It's early evening here in Bloomington. I don't know where in Japan it's in the morning, some real late. Does anyone have a final comment before we close?
I'm afraid I actually have to go. I have to interview someone for a job, and I'm a minute late. So
I will say thank you again.
I cannot take any more questions.
And next week we'll start at 5:30. I'll talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and then we'll have Dr. Chris Dede at 7 o'clock. So
awesome. Well, you'll have fun with that.
And so, yeah,
I'll say goodbye. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Let's all wave goodbye. Thank you, Danielle. So next week I'll be back. Like I said, people seem to be showing up here at 5:30. A lot of you. So I think I'm going to present again on diversity, equity, and inclusion. How instructional design for diversity, equity, and inclusion. I've been to Cornell's website, Carnegie Mellon, University of Michigan, Teachers College Columbia, and several others. And I've gathered the best practices from all of those into one talk that I've only given once before. And so you'll be my second guinea pig, so we'll see. And we'll go for an hour on that, and I'll field questions. And then we'll have a break for 15 minutes. Then Dr. Dede will be in from Harvard. and he's like the most famous futurist in education space. He's my podcast partner. I read him in grad school. And when I was in grad school, he's a brilliant person in immersive worlds, in AI in education. In particular, he's now in a $20 million AI related grant. So yeah, he's done many things on e-learning and other topics. He's done work on the 60-year curriculum for changing the perspective on lifelong learning. He's got a book on lifelong learning. He's got a book on engineering education. He's got a book on professional development of teachers. You know, he's pretty much done everything in this ed tech space. So I will close tonight and stop the recording unless anyone's got a final comment before I stop the recording. Anyone want to get their voice heard? So week 4, part 2, ending now. Thanks for coming.